Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the web, and welcome to our afternoon fireside chat here at Eurocontrol. It gives me great pleasure to be sat here with my colleague Yolanda Portillo. I'll let her introduce herself in a minute. But before we get into the conversation for the next 40 minutes, I just thought that I'd remind you and advise new people to the format of how you can submit your questions to us right here live, and we'll see them just off camera in a screen in front of us. If you have any problems with the format regarding the interface, please use the chat functionality. If you want to ask myself, Yolanda, a question, please use the Q&A functionality in front of you on the screen. So we're here today to do that terribly British thing, to talk about the weather. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, in this format, rather than doing what we've done previously this year with regard to the capacity webinar that we had and the discipline flight plan execution webinar we had, where we had 4 excellent panelists, different ones each time, and a presentation and a discussion, we thought this time, Yolanda and I, we thought we'd do something differently. We'll have a chat, and we'll have a chat about the weather and what we're going to do this year in the network, in the Eurocontrol network for aviation, differently this year from last year. So my name is Stephen Moore. I'm head of network operations here at Eurocontrol Network Manager, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you are. We've had over 600 people registered from around the world to join us, which is great. So thank you for that. And we've had some questions submitted in advance, and we've tried to incorporate those into our planning for this chat. But I'm going to now shut up and ask my dear colleague Yolanda to introduce herself, your role, and let's get a conversation going about weather.
Thank you, Stephen. So my name is Yolanda Portillo, as Stephen has said. My background is air traffic controller and aeronautical engineer, and I was appointed 2 years ago to be the head of the Network Manager Operations Center. And I think it's worthy at this point to explain a bit more about the Network Manager Operations Center. What is this specific center? Because I have seen, since I am here, that it's a bit of a misunderstanding sometimes, because we are not an air traffic control center, a normal one. We are a specific operational unit that belongs to the Network Manager, and we work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to give this service to the network, to provide the air traffic flow management central service together with the flow management positions along the network, to do this demand capacity balancing and also to manage crisis. and is in this remit in which we are also dealing with the weather management, and this is why we are going to talk about this today.
Thank you. Lovely introduction. So before we get on to that then, those people that have joined us will notice the slide talks about Think Network. If I may, if you go to the Eurocontrol website, eurocontrol.int, you'll find a news item from last week where we launched at Airspace World Think Network. Some of you may have heard of Altogether Now, which was produced last year and the year before and the year before that. Think Network is an iterative development of Altogether Now. It has been updated as a guide, and it's a guide for operational people in all areas of the aviation ecosystem, the stakeholders, about how to take decisions whilst thinking of the effect of those decisions in the network. Everything in the network, airports, airlines, ANSPs, ground handling, you name it, everything is about operational delivery this year. From a network perspective, we really do ask for you to spend a few minutes, if you can, and share the knowledge of Think Network. We'll also be using the slide as we go through as a bit of a placeholder, so Yolanda and I can keep ourselves on track. Talking of which, we thought that it'd be really handy to introduce the subject by what was going on last year and firstly, what to expect this year. So very briefly, here you can see a slide, and whether you can see the colors clearly or not, you can hopefully see the level of shading. What this slide is showing is what traffic to expect in 2025 versus 2024. And you can see that there's a key on the top left-hand side, but overall, just beneath that key, it says NM area plus 5.2%. So this is the traffic growth in en route aviation for the area that you can see for 2025 over 2024, an increase of 5.2%. But please remember, that's over the year, and in the summer, some of those airspaces will see traffic increases well above 10, in some cases above 15%. And if you look at where that extra traffic over the year is, you can see very clearly, I think, it's on the eastern area of our airspace and down in the southwest corner. Primarily, that's where the increases are. And in the summer, that's compounded, of course, as I say, into some bigger types of increases. What does this mean in terms of delay, or what performance to expect? Well, when you look at where the traffic growth is, it comes as perhaps no surprise. That's also where we're seeing the greater portion of the delay. This slide's exactly the same slide, just showing you where the average delay is per flight over the year. The ATM area there is 2.02 minutes over the year. In the summer, of course, that will be on average higher. And again, you can see by the red coloring this time, the southeast axis and the southwest axis is where we expect to see that performance really be challenged with a greater demand for the capacity that's available. So it's going to be a difficult summer, and it's going to be a summer comparable to last year. But how does this all add together? So just to keep everyone on the same page, as it were, I'm just trying to get the next slide to advance, which it's not doing. Can someone just move the slide on for me if it's not going to do it for me? Thank you. So how does this come then? So this comes like this. Last year, when we did a comparison, we ended up in a situation before we did what's called network measures of a forecast of 2 minutes delay for the year per flight. This year, at the same period, when we were putting all the information together, we ended up with 2.44 minutes per flight. When we then apply some network measures, which essentially is network manager working with all of the stakeholders, the airlines, the ANSPs, to put all of the information about what's going to happen in the summer and in the winter and in the spring together, and then decide on some measures to avoid reduce delay as much as possible. We ended up last year after these measures with 1.69 minutes per flight of predicted delay. This year we've ended up with 2.02 minutes per flight. One of the reasons that it's higher this year is not just because the traffic's gone up, but because over the last years we've seen much higher weather delay. So the forecasting has included much more weather delay in the forecast for this year, the delay forecast, I mean, than last year. What happened last year after the measures and after the year was over? We ended up with 2.12 minutes per flight of delay over the year. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see there Well, let's see. Think network, it depends on the implementation of everyone's plans, all the stakeholders delivering what they've promised to make sure we get the very best summer that we can, and hopefully have a delay that is less than last year, despite the increase of traffic. But some of that, of course, depends on what we're talking about today. So how did it look from a weather perspective? Well, for the 3 months of summer last year, June, July, and August, traffic was up 4.7%, total delay was up 47%, capacity was up 90% for this 12-week period on the previous year. ATC staffing delays were up 20%. Weather delays were up 48% on 2023. And I just added there the minutes. So from 4.7 million minutes of the total delay in that period up to 6.9 million minutes. And there in blue, for the audience online, you've got the total delay attribution between those. So in the red boxes, the increase from the previous year, but in the blue spheres, you can see 47% of the delay last year was based on weather. And that's why we're here, isn't it, Yolanda? Let's be honest, it's not been a very good year last year for weather delay. Just for comparison, the same slide, but the numbers are now updated with the delay figures from the 30th of March this year to the 18th of May. Nothing else has changed. I draw your attention to the bottom there, where we have 24% so far of weather delay, 37% total capacity, and 19% staffing. Total delay, however, is high at 20% over the same period the year before. But weather delays down 14%. I deliberately haven't put in a green box because so far we're not quite into our weather process, are we? So I'm going to stop now, I think, and come to you and say, so what's going to be different this year? What went on last year?
So I think it's worth it that we start from the beginning, because this is not the first time that we are trying to do something to manage the weather in the network. It all started in 2018. It was a first initiative. At that time, it only had like 3 NSPs. It was more like a trial. 3 air navigation service providers were involved, together with the meteorological service providers. And this is the important point, it was a collaborative approach in which it was the first time that a common weather forecast was put in the table in order to have like a common view for the weather and how we were going to manage the situation. This started in 2019, as I said, with these 3 first air navigation service providers, or 3 first countries involved. But then this evolved through the years until 2023, and now we have 24 air navigation service providers together with the Met providers. 4 airports and 4 airlines involved in this process. But what happened in 2023 is when the delays, it was, I think, the first year when the delays became like 60, almost 60% of the delays in the network, the weather network delays. And that year we intended to do, so last summer we intended to do something new, following the approach, or following the way that that is being used in the USA, following the approach that the FAA has been working for 20 years. So they have, of course, a different environment, but they already have for so many years this meteorological expertise embedded in their operations room. They have these direct contacts with the meteorological expertise that is in their ACCs. They contact the National Meteorological Service to provide this overview of what the weather in their network. And what is more important is that they move traffic flows according to the circumstances, according to this information. They provide scenarios, rerouting options to the airlines that sometimes are compulsory, other times are advisory, in order to move traffic flows around the bad weather areas. So following this approach, last summer we intended to do something similar. In some kind, we created a playbook of scenarios, but it was the scope was limited. It was only for 4 countries in the core of Europe, and also during the summer, we needed to extend these scenarios to other areas, but we encountered some issues that we need to now, with this new approach, we want to improve.
So we've heard there about the FAA and the example. And for most people, I think online, it's fair to say that the FAA have a different construct to clearly the Eurocontrol area. Primarily, Eurocontrol has 42 member states plus the two very close associate member states, and the FAA owns the airspace, and it's one huge mass, homogeneous mass. So how are we going to use the FAA example with the Eurocontrol situation?
Yeah, no, this is the difficulty, and we have not only different navigation service providers, different meteorological providers,
Yep.
different CAA systems. So if we go through the issues that we encountered last year to when we intended to implement this new strategy, I think this is going to clarify why we have moved forward and why we are doing a different approach this summer. So some of the issues that we encountered last year. First one was about the weather forecast, we could say. So this initiative, the cross-border weather procedure initiative, was I think it was a very important step. It was the first time that we produced a European forecast, a network forecast for the network. It wasn't a very it is produced because it's still going to be produced, and we are going to use it also in our new approach in a very handy format. It was intended to be easily understood by the people that needs to take decisions in the operations. So this was a very, very good starting point. But this product that was produced through a collaborative approach that came under the umbrella of EUMETNet. EUMETNet was collecting or is collecting all these weather forecasts from the different providers along Europe, putting this product together and producing it twice a day. This is one of the first problems.
And we'll see an example in a minute.
Yes, I will show an example in a minute. So this weather information is only produced twice a day, one early in the morning, and then an update is being received in the afternoon. So the first issue is that it's not granular enough. It's not produced in a continuous manner. So it doesn't provide us all the data we need to base our decision-making process. This is the first issue we encountered last summer.
So we have a Eurocontrol-wide forecast that's twice a day and is quite high level.
Exactly. Yep. It's not so granular as we need. So the second issue we found is it was more on the mandate, because the NMOC, this unit that I had explained, this operational unit that is working for the network, works in a cooperative manner with the rest of the stakeholders. And when we needed to implement the scenarios that we created last summer, we needed to coordinate with the stakeholders to be able to apply them. And in many occasions, this was not possible. They were refused. We had a negative answer to implement the scenarios. Why?
Yeah.
Why
is that be?
Well, and this is because, of course, we have capacity issues along the network, and the scenarios sometimes are overloaded in other sectors. So it was not so easy without a mandate to apply the scenarios. This was the second issue we found. And the third one is that at the end, the decision-making process was just, the decisions were taken not the very last minute, but very, very close to the operation, on the day of the operations, and this brought a lot of instability and to the network. So we need to tackle this with a new approach.
Is the DUFA?
Yeah.
So if we can get the slides back up, perfect. It's coming up now. We'll then just have a look at a couple of those graphical explanations that you've sort of described.
So this is just an example of this product, this cross-border competitive forecast that I had mentioned. This is produced by EUMETNet in collaboration with all the meteorological providers that are part of this initiative, and is still going to be the base of our new approach. And I want to show you this and also to highlight the fact that we are talking about delays since the beginning. Delays are important. Of course, we intend with this new an initiative to reduce delay, but it's not only delays. Is also safety. And I will try to explain just through this example. So in this convective forecast, you can see that there is like we have a picture of what is going to happen the next day. We receive this in the morning and an update late in the night. There are different time frames and different colors. And these colors are related to the convective weather. And the colors have to do with the probability, and also if the convection is clustered, is isolated. So it's very easy just as a first sight to see if it is red or purple. Purple is not in this example, but
it's quite high level though, isn't it? I mean, if we look at the zoom in on the right-hand side there, the red, which let's assume the darker it gets, the worse the forecast for want to, and the higher the probability. It's quite big. I mean, that's covering hundreds of thousands of square miles, isn't it?
Exactly,
of ground, airspace as well. So that's the granularity problem, as clear as you can say it. But you've mentioned safety as well. So shall we have a look at?
Yes, we're just looking at this example that is from the 29th of June last year. If we focus on what was going to happen on that specific date in the afternoon and in that specific region in the network, what happened? So we can see, and this is why I'm going just to show everything and then we can talk through it. So what happened exactly is that the flight plans that are intended to go through a specific piece of airspace in our network, if there are bad weather conditions there, and they were on that specific date in the Czech Republic, this traffic is being shifted and is moving towards a collateral area that in which they were not expected to appear at the beginning. So we see the blue lines are reflecting the traffic that was expected, and the green lines is the real traffic.
So that's on the big picture on the left.
Yes.
The blue airspace is the airspace in question.
Exactly.
The blue lines are the planned routes for the flights that were in that period, whatever hour it is. And the green is the reality of what happened. And you can see a big dog leg there, as you say, into Viennese airspace, pretty much, isn't it?
Yep. Exactly. So, sorry.
If we just go back one, before we take them off. There we go. And
yes.
On the right-hand side?
And on the right-hand side, well, we can see what happened in this specific sector in Austria, in Vienna. They experience an overload in the sector because, well, is in the left you can see the what was expected in blue, and then the real traffic that appear in that specific sectors from an image from the CHMI. So they had this overload. They had more than 28 traffics, more than expected in an hour.
So 20 more flights in an hour in the airspace, as we can see there from the blue to the white. I think the bottom picture is clearer, certainly from where I'm seated.
Yes.
Far more traffic in reality because the weather pushed the traffic out of where it was planned to be into this other airspace. It's not expected. It happens. We're both controllers, so we know it happens tactically. And they turn right in this case or left, and they're ending up in the airspace that's not expected.
Yes. So I repeat myself, but I think this is why it's important that we highlight that it's not only about delays. It's also about bringing safety, stability to the network.
Okay. So before we move on then, I noticed that a couple of questions have been submitted, and I'm also told by my dear colleagues as well in the studio that we've got close to 300 people connected. Now, if I were to do a quick ratio in my head, and maths was never my forte, we don't have a very high ratio of questions to viewers. So if you would like to throw in a question or two, we'd really appreciate that. Here they come. Thank you very much. Either someone in the back has pressed a button or you were all just typing then. So we're going to carry on, but as Yolanda talks through the next part, I'm going to have a look at some of these questions and see if we can integrate them. So thank you. Keep them coming. We'll have a look at them as we go through. So we've seen the traffic forecast for this year and the forecast and the delay so far. We've heard from you the problems that we had last year with regard to the application of the weather procedure. We know that there was those three things that I noted down. We didn't have a mandate, a lack of mandate for the NMOC to do something differently. I say issues, it's not fair, but the forecast was very high level, not granular, and it was produced only twice a day that we were utilizing. And we found decisions were being made in the network collaboratively, cooperatively, but it took time and the decisions were often too late.
Exactly. So our approach for this summer intends to tackle these three issues that we found.
Okay.
So the first one, I will start with the Met expertise. So we are lucky to say that now we have 6 experts that are being trained. This is meteorological experts that are going to be embedded in our operations, working together with us. We are still going to use this forecast that we receive from UMetNet as a basis because we are not forecasters. We only are going to produce our own weather assessment for our own internal purposes, for our own operations at NMOC. So this is the first thing that this meteorological expertise is going to be in our operations. We are going to be in direct contact with the local meteorological providers to have this insight, to have also the granularity that we need, and the continuity, because they are going to be working together with us, receiving this forecast in the morning, analyzing it, providing the updated information, and they are going to be there in the continuous basis. So this is the first thing, meteorological expertise in our option. The second one, about the mandate. We have gone after we started after summer 2024, and we had worked with all our stakeholders to prepare a playbook of scenarios that we are going to apply during summer, depending on different cases, different triggers. We have defined the specific procedures to be applied together with our stakeholders during all this winter. And then NMOC is going to take the decision in some of the cases that had already been agreed with our stakeholders.
So we have these scenarios. They're all agreed through the cooperative decision-making process that we must follow through our working arrangements that the EUROCONTROL Network Manager operates under. And then we've got these as scenarios pre-agreed, and then we can use them.
Exactly.
At any point?
We can use it following the timeline that we have defined with them. We have a specific process that we...
Because we need a lead time, don't we?
Exactly. So this is starting very early in the morning, and this is the third issue that we want to tackle. Remember that we said that last year most of the measures were being taken last minute. We want to bring stability to the network. So all this process is going to be applied in the pre-tactical timeframe. Pre-tactical, we are talking about the day before the operations. And then, of course, we are going to do the follow-up through the day of the operations also, but they are going to be applied pre-tactically. Starting in the very early in the morning, we receive this forecast from UMetNet. Our Met specialist is going to analyze this forecast, produce our own weather assessment, work together with our pre-tactical team. We also are going to receive all the information from our FMPs, from the stakeholders. This is very important. We need to know how the network is, if they have any capacity issues, any other restrictions that we need to take into account. And then we follow this timeline that is already defined in our processes. It's nothing new, it's in our manuals. To be able to do this network impact assessment and to evaluate if the scenarios, based on the triggers that we have defined, if the scenarios are bringing any benefit for the network or not. And then we will apply them, and we will publish through the normal channels and through our initial network plan that is published at 4 UTC every afternoon.
Do we want to get the slides back up and show some of this then? Can we put the slides back up then? And then we can just show, hopefully, some of what you've described, because I know we've got something to help explain this.
Yes. So our procedure is going to be based in two main tools, two main instruments. One is the scenarios that I have defined. These scenarios are, the intention of these scenarios is move traffic flows to avoid these bad weather areas. So what is happening now? What happens if we don't do anything is what you can see in the image. So if we have an area in our network that had very bad weather conditions, the traffic is moving around, is trying to avoid this area, and is moving around and is causing an overload in the collateral sectors. We have unforeseen entries, unforeseen deviations in collateral sectors. So this is what is happening now.
On this slide, then, just to check my understanding, This is without the procedure, and we have the penultimate aircraft, the pinky red thing, and the orange one deviating around the weather, going into airspace that's not expecting them. It's called unplanned deviations there, but that's what's happening, and that's the example we saw from Vienna as well.
Vienna,
Okay.
yes.
So what will our scenarios do then, in theory?
So our scenarios, what we are intending to do is that we are going to move a specific number of flights out of the areas that we know already that they are going to have bad weather conditions. We are going to move these to other areas in which we know that there is capacity.
Okay. These are the green flights.
Exactly. We cannot avoid that. Still, there is going to be traffic that is going to deviate and going into the collateral airspace. But with this, we intend that there is not a lot of traffic being unforeseen deviated, and we can plan on the traffic that is moving to the areas where there is spare capacity in the network. So this is the first tool that we are going to use, is these scenarios that we have decided with all our stakeholders. We have defined them, we have decided together with them the processes that we are going to follow to apply them. And there is another tool that we are going to use, and it's based on the RATs. At the beginning of the presentation, you have been explaining about the summer measures.
The measures, yeah, the network measures.
The network measures that we implement every summer in order to tackle these capacity bottlenecks that we have in the network.
Moves traffic or stops traffic on certain routes.
We apply these RATs that are restrictions to the traffic to avoid these areas where there is high demand and capacity bottlenecks. Yeah. So these RATs, once they are implemented, they are applied for the whole summer. Normally they can be fine-tuned, but they are there. And what can happen is that if we have an area where there are bad weather conditions, and also we have an area that is restricted to the traffic because of the RAT measures, we can be at the end pushing traffic towards the bad weather. So the intention is that during summer, and taking on board and taking into account the meteorological prediction, we are going to relax these RATs. These are the RATs because there are other RATs in the network that we are not going to touch at the beginning, or we are not going to touch without coordination.
These are agreed, yeah? These are part of the pre-agreed scenarios, effectively.
These RATs that can be relaxed without coordination are part of the agreement that we have reached with the stakeholders, and the intention is to give to the airlines more options.
So in this example, we have a forecast for the weather where it is. The green routes will still be available, but that's where we're trying to offer an alternative for the airlines. Right now, without relaxing that RAD, the red routes aren't available, but with relaxing the RAD, the airlines, when they're doing their final flight planning and just before, have the opportunity to reroute and to avoid the delays that will be caused by restrictions in this area where the weather is shown.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So hopefully that's clear, because it's clear for me, but then it's not the first time I've seen this slide, let's be honest. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. So these are the two tools that we are going to use this summer for weather management. But once that we have defined the process, we have defined the tools, why don't we use them also for any other capacity constraints that can appear in the network that are not initially foreseen as part of the capacity bottlenecks that have already been identified through the normal processes. So this is why we call this new approach capacity and weather-based operations, because we would like to use these tools also for the capacity constraints. In this case, the process is not exactly the same because we need to coordinate with the stakeholders, but it's also.
So I know you can see what I can see, Yolanda, but we've got quite a few questions coming in, so thank you. There's still time to submit a few more, but in my head, I've been scanning through a little bit of them, and I think there's some really pertinent questions here. In the last sort of 8-9 minutes, we'll turn our attention to, if that's okay.
Okay.
In as much as I think they raise a couple of, many important points, but one I've just noticed is, do you compare scenarios where there are routes and FRA is being employed? There are other ones about testing accuracy of forecasts. And what I'm going to do, with the greatest respect to those who've submitted, is just push that into a conversation briefly about reporting. So last year, we and another question asked this directly, we were checking in a positive way where the forecast convective bad weather was going to be, and whether the number of forecasts of convective bad weather had increased, and they had, a factor of 27% increase in severe weather forecasts. And then we were checking the actuals with our partners in the network of observations, and indeed 27% increase in severe weather forecasts, a 30% increase in observations. So that was consistent. We also then looked at where ANSPs had been applying weather regulations in the en route phase, directly replying to a specific question in the chat here. And we looked at that and we said, so were the regulations commensurate with the forecast and the observations? And we put all that together. Are we going to continue doing that this year with our own scenario management?
Yes, and in fact, it's a very good point because it was the first time that we did this verification of the forecast. It was the first time that we did it last summer. And of course, now that we are going to have this expertise in our own operations, we are going to look at this verification. Is the real weather appearing? Is this forecast consistent along the network? There are specific areas where there is more difficult to predict than others, and also to correlate with the regulations that are being applied. So of course, we are going to continue doing this. We started last year and we will continue.
And in addition, we'll also report every week on the use of the scenarios, these particular scenarios that we've described, yeah? So that'll happen every week as well.
Exactly.
The RADs that have been relaxed, those restrictions that have been relaxed, we'll be reporting on as well.
Exactly.
How are we going to think about the delay aspects? Are we going to be able to think of a way of demonstrating delay saved? Because at the start, well, not at the start, earlier on, you did say it's not just about delay, it's about safety. So we can look at that in terms of overloads or not, and making sure the sectors have the right amount of traffic, not too much, but not too little either, and that the scenarios have been effective and, of course, always are safe. But are we going to be able to look at a delta in the delay?
Yes, well, we can compare the situation if the do nothing situation, we could say. If we would have not applied the scenarios, what could have happened. So we can do this comparison. But you know that
it's difficult, isn't it? Because when we get from simulation to real, you no longer have the ability to look back again at a fresh sheet of paper and see what would have happened.
Exactly. And it's very difficult also the comparison because we all know that the conditions are not going to be repeated exactly. We don't know how the weather is going to be this summer. It's going to be very good, even bad, but worse than last year. So yeah, this comparison is difficult, but of course we are going to do this this reporting, this post analysis in a continuous basis, and with the meteorological expertise, it's going to be much easier.
And I think there's another question that's just come in, and thanks. I shouldn't name individuals because otherwise I should name everyone. But thanks, Christos, for this one. I probably won't answer it directly for you, but it's a question around the use of AI and machine learning. And in our everyday life, I think most of us use WhatsApp. We find AI in there now, and everything. It's everywhere. Are we using AI and machine learning, or is this something for the future?
Well, we are using it already. In fact, we have a system that is not operational yet, but we can foresee the delays of the capacity restrictions that are going to happen in the network, taking into account the bad weather that is foreseen. So we are using it. It's our intention to take this more into account in our processes, but still is not an operational tool that we can
use. I think it's very fair to say that you've touched on it really, but this is year one, and we haven't, and it's not deliberate. I'll come to it in a second regarding airports. We're not ignoring airports, but we've been talking en route, aren't we? But this is very much the first part, isn't it? Of the weather process and procedures that will come in the future, through cooperative decision making, through all the working arrangements. But I guess what I'm trying to say is what happens this year is a test bed and a sounding for what's going to come in, as much as the concept we know works. We know that we're going to be able to have success to help offer up new routes by the relaxation of restrictions and utilize some scenarios that are pre-agreed. And hopefully then we can build on our learning this summer with the reporting and the transparency to have a better outcome this year and the years above.
It's very important, Stephen, because as I mentioned, the FAA has been applying this for 20 years now. We know already also that many stakeholders have this meteorological expertise embedded in the ops room, and they have explained that it has been through the years that they have taken the most of it. So it's the first step, but it's very important.
Couple more questions then, just as a sort of quick fire round for us both. So there's a question from Bernhard. Will you move flights to where there is capacity or capacity to where you expect more traffic? I'll come in here because it's a quick one, but if you read the one above from Guillaume, we'll come to that next. Can you see it? Do you need my specs? I can't see them without. Sorry, Bernhard, here we go. So this is one of the essential situations that leads to the delay pictures that you saw right at the start. So the idea here is moving the flights to areas that have a bit of capacity in these pre-agreed scenarios. But what we can't do is just move capacity to more traffic. Our ANSP stakeholders in the network, of course, if they've spare capacity to open more sectors, but of course in the summer there's as many sectors open as can be because it's very busy with high demand. But if they have the ability, then yes, in effect, we can open more capacity. But in the summer, it's more likely there's capacity and we're moving aircraft or putting scenarios in place that allow operators to go a little further away from perhaps their preferred route where the weather is and move into a bit of a different airspace. And
we know already that there are going to be days this summer in which there are not going to be any.
Because we're looking at somewhere in the region of 37,000 flights a day in the summer as a high average. So, you know, the peak days will get close to that, certainly.
And this is why, as I explained, we are doing this network impact assessment. Before we take any decision on implementing the scenarios, this is going to be part of our processes.
I think there's many other questions here, but I'm also noticing the time. I think what I'd like to do is just try and summarize a little bit because we've got to finish in a minute. But this has been a wonderful opportunity, firstly, for you and me to have a conversation that lasts more than 5 minutes as we hurriedly about our business in a day. So thank you for your time, Yolanda. Thank you, of course, to the team that support. Thank you to everyone that's been listening along and watching along online. I hope you've enjoyed this fireside chat. How would we summarize, though? How do you want to sum this up?
I would say yes, that this is the first step. It's the first step of this paradigm shift. We are going to start doing this, but we think this is a very important change in weather management, and we are very optimistic about this new approach.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone online. Thank you to everyone for your time and your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to cover them all, but I'm really pleased that you came and joined us. And thank you. I wish you a very non-convective summer period. Thank you and take care.